Hello, thank you for viewing this SampleWare demonstration. In this video, we will review the basic functionality of the software. We will begin by defining what a data template is and how to set one up. We will then begin to organize our directory tree, create a new sample container, do some simple data entry, and then perform a couple sample searches on that data. Hopefully, through this process, you will begin to learn how to configure and start to use SampleWare. The first step in using SampleWare is to define a data template. A data template is used to describe your samples and the fields of data that you will be storing. In this demonstration, we will be storing data associated with a blood work experiment, so I'll create that blood work template now. There's a barcode that will uniquely identify each sample. I will then want to store several parameters that describe the actual blood sample, including the collection date, the donor ID, and the blood volume. I will then want to store several fields pertaining to a new reagent we will be testing on this blood. We will store the reagent ID, the reagent volume, and the white blood cell count that we will analyze for each sample. And each of the data fields that I'll be storing for my blood work, so I will save this data template. You can create as many unique data templates as you need to define the different unique sample types that you will be storing in your lab. I will now take a look at the directory tree that we use to organize our sample containers. You can organize your containers by physical location in the lab, by project, or by owner. I will organize my sample containers by project, so I'll go ahead and create a new blood work folder now. Selecting blood work, I will now add a new sample container. At this point, you could scan in a barcode associated with that container or use the auto feature to uniquely create a unique ID for that container. I will give that, in this case, a 96 2D barcoded sample rack from Mycronic, and I'll select the default data template for the container, in this case, blood work. I will now begin doing some data entry. The first thing that I will want to enter will be the barcode ID. In this case, we have obtained our barcode IDs from a Biomicrolab plate scanner that outputs the 2D barcodes in Excel format. So I will simply copy those barcodes from Excel and paste them into my data grid. At this point, I have now entered in all 96 unique barcodes for this sample container. I will now begin to add some of the data fields for this first sample, including the collection date, the donor ID, and then finally the reagent volume. Now these fields will be the same for each sample in this container, so I will go ahead and select those fields, drag down to the bottom of my sample grid, my data grid, and use the copy down feature to complete the data entry process for those fields. White blood cell count will be obtained from the analysis instrument that outputs its data in an Excel format similar to the barcode reader. So once again, I will copy those results from the Excel spreadsheet and paste them into my data grid. Once I hit the Save button, we will now have successfully entered in the data for this first container, and we will see that in the directory tree, underneath blood work, the new container is now appearing. Once you've entered in your data, you'll want find and retrieve those samples from the data collection. Our advanced sample search allows you to search on combinations of data fields so that you can create a very narrowly focused search and retrieve specific samples of interest. In this case, I will be searching for, within the blood work template, white blood cell counts that are greater than and equal to 300 or less than and equal to 350. I've added those criteria to my sample search, and the results I obtain are for all samples with white blood cell counts that fall within that range. In this example, we have only stored one sample container. In a real-world example, you might have thousands of containers, and a search results can span many of those containers. To actually open up the container containing this sample, you simply have to double-click on the sample of interest. It will open up the specific container, highlight the sample of interest so that you can then edit the fields, copy the data into another container, export the data into Excel. I will now perform a second search, this time on the barcode ID. You can enter in multiple criteria and search for a list as long as the entries are separated on different lines. In this case, I have a series of barcode IDs in an Excel spreadsheet that may have come from a plate reader or have been submitted by that list. Paste it into my search tool, and I will now be able to search for that list of barcodes. And the results then are for each of the samples that have that barcode in the list. And again, I can double-click on an entry to open up the container that it is located within to access its physical location or access its data so that I can edit it or again export or copy to another container. So that concludes this brief overview of the SampleWare functionality. I hope it's enough to get you started using the software, configuring it for your use. If you have any questions regarding